Everyone knows Henry VIII had 6 wives. It's in the rhyme. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. But what if the rhyme left a few people out? What if there weren't 6? What if there were 7? Or 8? Or more? Secret annulments, forgotten mistresses, political cover-ups, royal propaganda? Because when you're the King of England with a god complex and an axe collection, maybe rewriting your dating history isn't that hard. Today we're digging into one of the weirdest historical theories on record. Did Henry VIII have more than 6 wives? And if so, what happened to them? Welcome to Probably Not True, the podcast where the monarchs are messy, the records are unreliable, and the marriage drama could fill a Netflix box set. Now, let's start with a version that you probably learned in school, or from that one theatre kid who, much like my fiancée, hasn't stopped quoting Six the Musical since 2019. The rhyme goes, divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. It's catchy. It's brutal. It's practically Tudor flavoured slam poetry. So here's how it breaks down. Number 1. Catherine of Aragon, Spanish princess, married to Henry for 23 years, originally engaged to his older brother, Arthur. Not King Arthur of Camelot. Couldn't give him a surviving male heir, which was basically the Tudor equivalent of a performance review. Result? Annulled, not divorced, and technicality matters when the Pope's involved. Anne Boleyn. Sparked the English Reformation. Queen for 3 years, mother of the future Queen Elizabeth I. Accused of adultery, incest, and witchcraft. Beheaded. Spoiler alert, at least half of that was political nonsense. Number 3. Jane Seymour, or the good one, according to Henry. Translate that as she gave him a son. Died 2 weeks after childbirth. Henry called her his true wife. She avoided execution, which apparently was enough to earn sainthood in Henry's mind. Number 4. Anne of Cleves. German princess, married sight unseen based on a flattering portrait. Henry met her in person and allegedly said she looked like a Flanders mare. A horse. The marriage was annulled after 6 months. She got a nice pension and stayed on good terms with him, which was probably the smartest move out of any of them. Number 5. Catherine Howard. Teenager, cousin of Anne Boleyn. Married Henry at age 19 when he was 49 and rotting from the inside out. He accused her of infidelity, beheaded. Tudor men really had 2 settings, marry her and kill her. Number 6. Catherine Parr. Twice widow before marrying Henry VIII. Acted more like a nurse than a wife, to be honest. Outlived him, then immediately married her secret crush after Henry's death. That's the set, that's the rhyme, and that's the version that we get in textbooks, documentaries, and musicals with glittery corsets. But, and it's a big Tudor-sized but, history is rarely that clean, especially when it involves royalty, politics, religion, and a king with a mood disorder and a god complex. Because there is a question that historians have been quietly muttering for years now. Did Henry VIII actually have 6 wives? Or have we all been doing the maths wrong this entire time? So, 6 wives, that's the official count. What if I told you that that number might be more a PR campaign than a precise census? Because floating around in dusty archives, internet wormholes, and the occasional conspiracy YouTube rabbit hole, there are whispers of other wives. Forgotten, covered up, or simply never acknowledged. Let's get into some of the most entertaining theories. Theory 1. The secret marriage to Lady Eleanor. According to some amateur historians, and one deeply suspicious 19th century footnote, Henry may have married another woman between Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn. Her name? Possibly Lady Eleanor Talbot, or maybe a different Eleanor entirely. A noblewoman, allegedly distant kin. The theory goes that Henry secretly wed her, maybe for love, maybe for politics, but quickly got cold feet, had the whole thing annulled and erased. Evidence? Mostly speculation, plus a few ambiguous letters that might be about someone else entirely, but it is juicy enough to make the rounds. And let's be honest, if anyone had the ego to rewrite his own marital history like a bad Tinder bio, it was Henry VIII. And I have to say, the man has taste, marrying a woman called Eleanor. Threw that in for my fiancée, she'll love that. Now, theory number 2. Anne Boleyn wasn't wife number 2, she was wife number 3. This one suggests that somewhere between Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, Henry had another marriage, not Eleanor, a short, church-blessed union that was quietly annulled. Now, supporters point to gaps in court records, unusual payments to unknown women, and a strangely quiet period where Henry seemed very distracted, but no official consort was listed. Which, to be fair, sounds like most of his reign. Now, of course, this theory would also mean that everything about Anne's historic rise was based on a lie, but if there's one thing Tudor historians love more than facts, it's a lie wearing a tiara. Theory number 3. The post-Parr plot twist. Now here's where things get really spicy. Some fringe theories claim that Henry remarried after Catherine Parr, either because he was chasing one last heir or because someone convinced him it was a good idea between gout attacks and mood swings. The alleged bride? Take your pick out of any of these 3. A young lady in waiting, a distant cousin, a European noble slipped in as part of a shady alliance. There are even claims that this mysterious woman was quietly disposed of when the marriage soured, which is, as we know, on brand for Henry VIII. But it does get weird. The Anne of Cleves we were on a break theory. Some historians have argued that the annulment with Anne of Cleves may not have been as cut and dry as it sounds. The official line is marriage annulled, no consummation, Anne becomes the king's sister, all very friendly. But what if they stayed married in practice, just not on paper? She's got a palace, a pension, and an unusually close seat at the court. Some think this was Henry's version of a royal friend zone. You know, we're not together, but I still like all her posts. Technically not a marriage, but definitely not a marriage either. Frankly, that's more emotionally complex than most of Henry's legal unions. So, are these missing wives real? Well, probably not. But are they plausible enough to live rent-free in the mind of Tudor truthers everywhere? Oh, absolutely. So, royal legal loopholes, and what counts as a wife anyway? So let's say that, hypothetically, Henry VIII did marry more than 6 women. Here's the problem. What counts as a wife when you're the king? Because we all know Tudor marriage law was a hot mess, especially when you're the monarch and the church keeps getting in the way of your love life like an overbearing mother-in-law with a direct line to God. So, was it a marriage if it wasn't consummated? Well, according to church law, no. Which is why the Anne of Cleves annulment went through faster than most iPhone returns. If Henry didn't seal the deal, it didn't count. But that same loophole also got used when it was convenient, like when he wanted to marry someone new without having to, murder the current wife. So we get annulments based on everything from I didn't love her to she tricked me with makeup. What if the marriage wasn't public? Well, this is another grey area. Royal marriages were supposed to be witnessed, announced and blessed, but Henry had a bad habit of doing things on impulse. So if he did marry someone secretly, without witnesses or fanfare, does it count? Canon law says maybe, and royal ego says definitely. The truth probably lies somewhere in between the chapel and the bedroom. If you're interested in more of this, Carry On Henry, one of the Carry On films, explores essentially this whole theory of a secret marriage that's not announced anywhere. What if he thought it was a marriage, but legally it wasn't? This happened all the time in royal circles. A pledge of betrothal, an exchange of gifts, maybe a romantic poem scrawled in bad Latin, and suddenly someone thinks that they're a wife. Meanwhile, the king thinks it was just foreplay. This legal murkiness gave Henry plenty of room to manoeuvre. He could declare a marriage invalid if it didn't serve his goals, or invent one when it suited him. Basically, if Henry liked you, wedding bells. If he changed his mind, sorry babes, wasn't a real marriage anyway. The bottom line? Royal marriage under Henry VIII was less about love or law, and more about convenience, image and heirs. So even if he had married someone in secret under dubious circumstances, there was every chance that he'd just unmarry them later via a royal decree and move on to the next Catherine. It's like Tinder but with more executions. Where did these rumours start? Well, let's play historical detective for a moment. Where exactly did the idea of extra wives come from? Because it's not like Henry VIII had a secret wedding registry at Tudor John Lewis. A lot of these theories stem from a messy cocktail of misinterpreted 16th century letters. Old-timey handwriting's bad enough without the added bonus of Tudor spelling. Betrothed might mean secretly married, or it might just mean they had a flirty conversation at court once and someone wrote it down. Inconsistencies in court records, which is just a fancy way of saying that people in power change the story a lot. Names vanish, dates don't match up, sometimes a lady in waiting is suddenly a beloved companion and we all raise a bit of an eyebrow. The Catholic Church also had beef. After Henry split from Rome and created the Church of England, the Pope wasn't exactly sending him Christmas cards. So the Vatican had every incentive to paint him as unstable, immoral and polygamous, in the worst way possible. Look at this heretic with his 7 wives, they basically said, clutching their rosary beads dramatically. And then came the 19th century historical fiction writers. These were the OG Netflix true crime dramatists. They loved to turn a hint of scandal into a full-blown subplot. So one rumour about a possible mistress? Boom, secret wedding. Lady seen entering Henry's chambers? Definitely a wife. Jane Austen, but with even more beheadings. There's also an uncomfortable truth that historians have to wrestle with. Royal propaganda worked. Henry controlled the narrative, Henry controlled the church. He literally made a new one when the old one didn't let him swipe left fast enough. He controlled what was written, what was remembered, and what was conveniently lost. If a marriage ended in political disaster, banish the wife, burn the letters, rewrite the records. And if you were a noblewoman who married the king behind closed doors and then fell out of favour, you didn't just get ghosted, you got deleted. Literally and figuratively. So why does the myth persist? Well, let's be honest. We all want this one to be true, because deep down we love thinking that royals, especially the famous ones like Henry VIII, were just as messy, chaotic and commitment phobic as the rest of us. Henry VIII already broke up with the Pope like it was a bad Tinder date, started his own religion like a Tudor Elon Musk, and executed wives like it was a particularly grim season of Love Island Tower of London edition. So the idea that he might have snuck in an extra marriage or three, honestly it feels kind of on brand for him. It's the perfect storm of conspiracy. Historical ambiguity. The 1500s weren't exactly known for rigorous record keeping. Things got rewritten, misfiled, or accidentally tossed into a fire during a political shuffle. Church conspiracy vibes. Nothing gets the internet or the 19th century historical fiction community going like the phrase hidden by the Vatican. Royal cover-up potentials. If you were the most powerful man in England and something awkward happens, what do? You literally rewrite history with quills. And of course, the eternal human urge to say, well actually, especially to a smug tour guide or to a pub quiz host. And let's not forget the real tragedy here. If this theory ever gets proven true, we'd have to change the rhyme. Divorce beheaded died, divorce beheaded survived, and then what? Remarried, ghosted, yeeted into historical abyss? Year 7 history teachers across the UK would riot. Textbooks would crumble, flashcards would burst into flames, there'd be chaos in the corridor of every British school. So maybe let's just leave it at 6, for everyone's sake. So, where does this one land on the probably not true believability index? Well, Henry VIII having more than 6 wives gets a 2.4 out of 10 annulment parchments. There's no solid contemporary evidence, there's no secret wedding certificates hidden behind a portrait, just a lot of whispered court gossip, clerical inconsistencies, and some truly unhinged 1800s historical fiction written by people who really needed to get a hobby. That said, this is a man who changed the national religion mid-breakup, made beheading your wife a vibe, and got the Pope ghosted harder than your last hinge date. So is it likely he had more than 6 wives? No. Is it impossible? Also no, because if there's one thing Tudor history teaches us, it's this. Never underestimate a power-hungry man with a crown, a gout problem, and unresolved emotional issues. Thank you for listening to Probably Not True, the podcast where the facts get fuzzy, the monarchs are dramatic, and the wives never seem to make it out alive. Sorry, Ellie. Follow the show wherever you listen, support us on Patreon for bonus episodes and extra chaos, and remember, always double check your royal marriage count. New episodes drop every Monday. Until next time, be smart, be skeptical, and maybe don't trust a man who built his own church just to ghost somebody. Next time on Probably Not True, the CIA, mind control, secret drug experiments, and the moment America asked, what if we weaponized acid? We're diving headfirst into Project MKUltra, the real, horrifying, deeply stupid government experiment that tried to turn truth into putty and thoughts into tools. Episode 12, MKUltra. Did the CIA try to weaponize LSD? Dropping next Monday.